Hi, my name is Josh Hoekstra, and I am a former U.S. history teacher. I taught 15 years at Rosemount High School. I also started a small business, and I'm also now working in IT consulting for a great company called Analysts International. I've never done a YouTube channel. I've never done something like this before, but although not teaching, I still have a great passion for the subject and for this country. And what I'm doing now with this channel is 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm going to talk about great men and women of this country who've provided leadership and courage. And it's just an opportunity for people who love history to maybe learn something or to get refreshed on some of these men and women, and maybe come across something that you didn't know. So once again, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to just post a couple minute video on some of these men and women who I think have shaped our country. The idea came from something I started in my classroom in 2011. I ran a tournament called the Most Courageous American. I had a couple kids right around March Madness time come into my class really excited about their bracket for their basketball picks and who was going to advance and who was going to beat who, and I was trying to capture that excitement for my history class, and I got an idea to have a Most Courageous American tournament. And so I had the kids come up with, in all my classes, 5 classes, 64 Americans who they believed defined the word courage. And once they selected their individual, they wrote an essay, a 1-page essay as to why this individual should be in the tournament. And once we had the names, what I did was simple. I put all the names in a hat and I drew them out randomly, and I placed them in a bracket board just like you'd see for an NCAA tournament. So you had matchups like George Washington taking on a 21st century Navy SEAL. You had Abigail Adams taking on Martin Luther King. Just some great matchups that were done randomly but created a lot of excitement. And at that point, we would have a matchup every day, and kids would, all kids in the class, whether they chose that person or not, would research those individuals the night before, and we would talk about them in class and debate them. And once the debate was over, we would just have a popular vote. I'd have the kids put their heads down on their desk, and we would say, how many think that George Washington is most courageous? And they'd raise their hand. Or how many think Michael Murphy is the most courageous in this matchup? And you'd raise your hand. And so at the end of each day, there was a winner and a loser, and the winners advanced, and obviously the losers were eliminated from the tournament. And I did this for 5 years, and it provided so much excitement and energy into my class from a research standpoint, a debate standpoint. And although I'm no longer teaching, I'm in the private sector, my passion still burns. And so I want to continue to talk about some of these people and like I said, provide maybe a little bit of entertainment and education to anyone who's interested. The guy I'm going to talk about today is one of my favorite Americans, and I'd never actually heard of him prior to a student bringing this individual to my attention, so it was educational for me as well. His name's Rockey Versace. Rockey Versace was served in the Korean War and volunteered for duty as an Army Ranger in the Vietnam War. When he wasn't on duty in Vietnam, he had a heart that was just huge. He volunteered at a Vietnamese orphanage and believed that the Vietnamese people in the early 60s, mid-60s needed just support. And that was one small thing he thought he could do, was to help the children. He was getting ready to go home in 1963. His tour was ending, and he had 2 weeks to go, but yet he still volunteered for an incredibly dangerous mission. And Rockey was shot 3 times in the leg and captured by the North Vietnamese. And during his captivity, one of the things that they did was they put him in a real small bamboo cage filled with insects and rodents, and his leg wounds went untreated, and experienced tremendous hardship with that. In addition to daily beatings and torture, their goal was to break Rockey and to get him to say things that were anti-American and contrary to his beliefs on what makes our country special. And they paraded him around different villages trying to get him to break and to display this American they had. And he never broke. And in fact, his legend spread obviously among other prisoners, but it also spread to the enemy that this guy was different. One of the things I think is fascinating about Rockey is that he often almost antagonized or made a point of being extra stern in his beliefs so that he would receive more punishment at the hands of the North Vietnamese, so his fellow captives wouldn't receive the brunt of their anger. And that just shows you putting others in front of yourself and that key characteristic of leadership. And through the fact that they could not break him, the North Vietnamese decided that he would be executed. So after 2 long years in this prison as a captive, they decided to execute him in 1965. And when you listen to the stories and the personal accounts from other captives who were in that camp, what they remember most, in addition to all the things he did in those years, was as he was being marched to his execution, he sang the Star-Spangled Banner prior to being executed. Rockey Versace was presented the Medal of Honor by George W. Bush 37 years after his death, and he was the first prisoner of war to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I think that this is a guy who, like I said, I didn't know about, and hopefully that spurs a little bit of interest on your part to maybe do some digging a little bit deeper on some of these men and women from our country's past. Thank you very much, and I look forward to next session.